Hi, my name is Courtney Carrion, and today I'll be walking you through a recent study that looks at how motor learning interventions affect brain activity and motor skills in kids with diplegic cerebral palsy. This topic hits home for me both personally and professionally, and I'm excited to share what I've learned. This study dives into how structured motor training can lead to changes in the brain for children with DCP. As a parent of a child going through therapy for CP, this research really resonates with me, and it also supports my professional interest in the connection between movement and the brain. The goal here is to identify how changes in brain activation relate to motor skill improvements. They hypothesize that increased contralateral motor cortex activation will relate to motor improvement. The study included 17 kids with diplegic CP, ages 8 to 16, all functioning at GMFCS levels 1 and 2, meaning they could walk with minimal or no help. The intervention lasted 6 weeks and included 16 sessions total of either strength based or sports skills training. The goal was to see how these programs might influence brain activity and functional motor skills. To assess the outcomes, they used a combination of clinical tools and brain imaging. The clinical measures included the challenge test and the COPM. That's short for the Canadian Occupational Performance Measure. That just helps track how kids rate their own performance and satisfaction in everyday tasks, and it's a great way to capture meaningful real world progress. They also use functional MRI to scan the brain during an ankle dorsiflexion task. They focused on two brain measures: the laterality index, which shows if activity shifts more to one side of the brain, and activation volume, which tells us how much brain space is being used during the task. The diagram shows how motor control signals move from the left motor cortex to the left side of the body. Even though this image is about upper limb movement, the same basic pathways apply to the ankle task that is used in the study. So this figure breaks down how motor cortex activation changed after the intervention. Based on which ankle was tested, the kids fell into three patterns. Pattern 1, the green, they showed strong contralateral activation. This is what we'd expect as typical brain response. Pattern 2, the purple, they showed more ipsilateral activation. This happened more than the non-dominant ankle, and interestingly was still linked to motor improvements. The pattern 3, the blue, it showed a shift back toward contralateral activation after training, which could signal a return to more typical motor control thanks to neuroplasticity. We also saw a 4.57% improvement in challenge test scores, which was statistically significant, and the dominant ankle had a notable increase in contralateral brain activity. Plus, the participants with smaller activation volumes after training tended to show better outcomes, suggesting that their brains were becoming more efficient. So the study had some solid strengths. It combined brain imaging with real world outcomes, and the interventions were practical and easy to replicate. Plus, using a pre post design helped strengthen the reliability of the findings. That said, there were some limitations. The sample size was small and limited to kids with milder CP, so we can't assume the same results would apply to those with more severe impairments. Also, the study didn't look at the long term outcomes, so we don't know if these brain changes stuck around. Still, the main takeaway, though, is that the structured motor training can change both brain patterns and function in a short time. It also highlights the value of using tools like functional MRI and rehab, and shows that the brain is still adaptable in school aged kids. So, the relevance to me, this research means a lot to me. My son has ataxic CP, which is different from diplegic CP, but it requires the same targeted progressive motor interventions. I'm also a strength and conditioning coach, and I've seen firsthand how structured training can lead to adaptation. This study backs up the idea that kids' brains can still adapt in meaningful ways. It's also inspired by the focus of, or it's also inspired my focus in my own research. I'm exploring currently how periodized interventions can support brain and motor improvements in kids with ataxic CP, especially when it comes to balance and coordination challenges. For me, this study supports both the hope that I have as a parent and the approach I take as a professional, and that with the right structure, movement can really change outcomes. Hilderley and colleagues, they made a meaningful contribution to our understanding of motor, of motor learning and neuroplasticity kids with CP. They showed that structured strength and skill-based interventions can lead to real changes in brain activation, even in school-age kids. One big takeaway is that even patterns we used to think of less ideal, like ipsilateral activation, may still support functional gains. That challenges some long held ideas in neurorehab. The study also reinforces the importance of high dose, individualized, goal based interventions, which is something that applies both in therapy and high performance sports settings. What really stood out to me and why this matters so much is that neuroplasticity bridges two of my biggest interests, pediatric rehab and elite performance. This review helps solidify the direction I want to go in both my research and future clinical work. Thank you for your time and the attention. Take care.